Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of January 26th, 2015. And you are right where you need to be. Don't forget, the Ask Videomail is your chance for your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one. I need your question if I'm going to answer it. Yes, that's right. So please send it to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people, and it is the best way to get the most out of the site. Skipped a few parts of that little intro just now, but I don't think you're sweating it, right? We'll be fine. We'll be fine. So this week, it's funny because last week I did. I'm a little sick. You can kind of hear it, can't you? Last week I had a video mail answer that was sort of a state of the industry address and saying, hey, everything is going to be fine, people, don't worry. And then DreamWorks announced that they were closing their PDI campus. Well, I wanted to address that just really quickly right now, sort of like a little bit of a follow-up. That's not what this video mail is, though, today, so don't worry about that. But just a little bit of a follow-up on that. For the most part, the business methods that PDI, DreamWorks, is using. Remember, DreamWorks bought PDI after they had some success in the very early days of CG. In fact, PDI is credited as having the first CG pipeline or feature pipeline. I'm not sure if that's true, but suffice it to say that there's they arguably basically invented this stuff. The point is that I'm taking a look at the industry as a whole, and this is what happens because we're in a moment where there are so many people that want to get into content, and there's companies like mine need to be agile and to create new methods of producing content that is affordable for all these newcomers to the arena. That makes it so that we're basically designing pipelines that we can get, like, for instance, a feature film done here with less than 40 people. Okay? And that's total. That's not like at a time. Dog Eat Dog is going to be finished with less than 40 people working on it in total. Okay? So that's people coming on and off of the project, okay? So, and the budget is minuscule. So I guess the point is that, like, I'm not personally putting places like PDI out of business. Well, that was a lot of alliteration. I'm not personally putting PDI out of business at all, but the industry is not going to be able to bear multiple $100 million plus feature animations anymore from anybody. When you have the marketing arm that Disney has, then you can basically afford it. But now people are looking at, like, Chris Meledandri. He uses a basically unknown studio called McGuff to make to produce the animations for his Illumination Entertainment, which is his own production company. He was at Blue Sky before that. Blue Sky, obviously the darlings of the feature animation industry in the way that they produce very high quality stuff, and they always have been less expensive than other places. All right, but now Illumination and McGuff, Chris Meledandri is the poster child for, like, new production practices, and apparently Despicable Me was made on a budget of 40, and Despicable Me 2 was made on a budget of 60 million. And people are like astounded at how, like, they were able to get such quality out of that. Now, I think I think anyone with enough animation experience understands that there's no reason to spend over $25-30 million to get any film. You can basically do a frame for frame remake of any film. It's just the overhead and the massive like engine has so much waste when you start getting up into those high numbers. So the point I'm driving at is the audiences want as much content as could be produced by, if you took PDI and let's say it's 500 people, okay, and they're all out of the job now, and that really sucks. All right, that sucks a hole. But if you took those 500 people, cut them up into 5 100-person teams, and had them using an agile pipeline with extremely fresh new production techniques, and gave the artists sort of the freedom that they need in order to produce at the pace that they can at their best, then all 5 of those 100-person teams would be able to make a film a year. It's just when you combine it that it becomes like too much. And the audiences want that much content. Audiences want that much. Believe me, we're still not making animation fast enough for audiences to consume. So, as much as it absolutely sucks, and I feel for everybody that's there, inevitably, the entire industry is going to turn into kind of what I've been talking all along about, learning animation, which is doing a lot more of a lot less. Okay, so not $150 million films, like one $150 million film a year, but do like 5 $30 million films a year. And yeah, like they're not all going to be like How to Train Your Dragon. They're not all going to be these epic tales with thousands of characters and whatever. But audiences aren't throwing their popcorn down and walking out of the theater if you don't tell them a story about with a crowd sequence in it. Okay, so I don't want this to come off as I'm saying I told you so, or good riddance or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I think that this is a correction to the market, the production of animation. I feel like this is kind of how things are going to go. Pixar and Disney aren't going anywhere, but obviously as audiences want more and more and more of this stuff, and as there are more newcomers to this space, they're going to bring with them a different understanding of budgets and a different way of doing things, which just puts pressure on these other studios. And I read this thing about going all into the whole subsidies and going all into those those important subjects and what have you. And I get that, but more important to consider is, are we taking stock of our workflow as an industry as often as we should? And I don't think we are at all. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. Like Katzenberg has a responsibility to his shareholders, and if all of a sudden he was convinced hey, hold on a second, maybe we should make smaller films, what's a good example, Thumbelina, great example, classic tale, very kind of small film, Don't need to make that into an epic movie. Little Red Riding Hood. In fact, they took Little Red Riding Hood and they made a $10 million film called Hoodwinked that grossed $100 million in the box office, had a sequel, and did, its fair share of second-run DVD, TV, and merch. I'll just say this. I'll leave you with a story, which is how I'm not sure if this is quite applicable, but the end of that thought was that Katzenberg can't just say, like, oh, well, let's make some small films now, because if he was like, all right, well, I'm going to fire these 500 people and keep 50, and we're going to make like one kind of like small film instead of like these major films, then all of a sudden it's like, well, why is your stock price what it is? Because you have this gigantic facility and all these people. What is the company actually really worth now if you're making these small films? So they're kind of locked into making the size of films that they are. So they're just going to make less films now, or fewer films now, is the correct English, right? But they have to make the same kind of one that they've always made. Anyway. So the story I was going to tell you was this executive that I knew at Sony. His name was Mike, and he left Sony to try to produce his own, low budget feature animations, very low budget. But at any rate, he was in charge of digital distribution, or at least that's what he thought his title was. So he goes to his boss, and he actually was the guy that negotiated the first deal where you bought a thumb drive. And it was like a 16 gigabyte thumb drive or something. It was back then anyway. And there was Sony puts out the Bond films. So it was the first deal where you could get the film preloaded onto this thumb drive. And it was like $1 or $2 extra on top of the price of the thumb drive. It was a good deal, right? $2 for HD movie. And so he negotiated this deal, and obviously it was Toshiba or whatever. Toshiba was interested in this because more people are going to buy their thumb drive, so they put a price tag on this thing, and they did this big launch, and they had the in-store displays with the James Bond and all these thumb drives or whatever. They thought it was a big success, and they put a price tag on this of something like $3 or $4 million. Right? So this guy, just by having this idea, and just like WeTransfer, like clicking a button, it costs nothing to send them the film to preload onto the drives. Nothing at all. Literally, like click of a button, $4 million. Click, deal. Boom, done. So he took this deal back to his boss at Sony and said, hey, I just made us $4 million on this Bond film by having it loaded onto thumb drives. How's that for digital distribution? And his boss basically said, if you keep on screwing around with stuff like this, we're just going to have to fire you. Your job is not to do this. Your job is to figure out how to prevent hackers from pirating our films. That's what the head of digital distribution is supposed to do. Protect us from piracy. So Sony is not interested in, sending one email with an attachment and getting $4 million for that deal being made. They're not interested in $4 million. They want to make $400 million, and they want to do it the same old way. So this guy ended up leaving because he wasn't interested in like anti-piracy and whatever. That's not what he thought his job was. He thought his job was to find new ways to distribute their films and get them into the hands of consumers and make some money. And it would take 100 deals like the one he made in order to make up $400 million, which is what they wanted to make up, what they wanted to earn on the distribution of the Bond film. But that's not impossible. So at any rate, again, it's a lot more of a lot less, right? Find ways to get content into people's hands that is a new way and is a more convenient way, in a way that they never even thought they wanted. Buy a thumb drive and the film is already on there. You just stick it into your computer or your smart TV and just watch it. Seems like a great deal. And if you do a lot of those, then in aggregate, you make as much as you would distributing it, widely or whatever. And your costs are zero to do that. And it's all profit. Anyway, I'm ranting now. But point is that they aren't thinking about doing a lot more of a lot less. They are trying to figure out how they can continue to do like a lot less of a lot more, these things. And what we see at DreamWorks is a correction of that. Now, I feel for those people. I don't think they're going to have trouble finding work. I think other places are probably going to snatch them up. But obviously there's no guarantees in life. And to all the people at PDI, you've done some fantastic work, and we owe you a lot. And good luck on the next phase of your careers wherever you go. Okay. So quick question. Let's check it out. Cool. So I just wanted to show you guys just one thing that I do that seems to sort of help. At a certain point, your Maya files do just get like super crashy. And for some, like we have a combination of tools that we use that at a certain point, they just get super crashy. And there is we've discovered that there's like almost nothing that we can do that really gets that ironed out. But there is a way that we sort of recover the crash file that seems to help a little bit, or at least make it crash a little bit less. Particularly, we use Shave and a Haircut for our fur and Anzavin rigs for our rigging, and sometimes some render plugins as well. And they all don't like each other at all. And at a certain point, stuff just gets a little bit crazy. So just what I want to show you is if you do have a crash, where it always says like, hey, Maya has stopped working, attempting to save file. Even if it doesn't save a crash file, you want to check your temp directory, and this is where you find that. I don't know where to find it on Mac, but I'm just assuming you use PC. Go to your local drive C and then go to users. All right, and mine's called artist, but as you can see, these grayed out folders are still visible. So this is what we do. We go to view, options, and then view again, and mine are show hidden files and drives. All right, that's checked. By default, it says don't show. So just change that to show and hit apply. And then go to app data right here, and then local. And then this is all of the locally stored data that each one of your applications is putting on your computer when you run it. In the temp directory down here is all of the temporary files that normally your computer either cleans up or the application itself cleans up after a while. But as you can see, there are 787 items in this directory, and a lot of them are actually Maya either play blasts. Here's a play blast. This is a Maya crash log. It's a dump file. It basically just says what Maya was doing at the time and the configuration of your computer and processor and whatever as it was doing it. Here's some Premiere files, some text files, more Maya crashes. And as you can see, these Maya files are plentiful. And this is just the crashes that happened since December 5th. So this is a month of crashes and 19. 19 crashes since in a month, so that's like once every 2 days on average. But December 5th was a very crashy day, very crashy. Anyway, so the latest one should be the crash that just happened. Okay, you want to get something like Notepad++. It's a free program, and it edits text files in a much cleaner way, and it actually lays it out in the way that the code set is sort of put together in Maya. Also, normally it will save a .ma file for your .mb files as well. If you save it as .ma normally, then I find that the .ma files that are saved as the crash files are in a lot better shape. However, at a certain point, saving it as a Maya binary is actually a little less crashy, we've found, than .ma. So the trade-off is once you start getting into the area where your stuff is crashing, you might actually want to start thinking about using .mb, which makes it harder to recover, but might delay the amount of crashes that you're getting for at least a little while. And Maya will still attempt to save a .ma for it. All right, so the reason I'm opening this up is because you want to see if anything has been added that is like really like garbage, and normally it's at the beginning or the end. Okay, so if it's totally screwed up, then it's totally screwed up. And it really looks like there's nothing that's too messed up in this one as well. Okay. And you would be able to tell because there'd be some crazy characters. Maya ASCII is a human readable format. Okay, so there might be some crazy stuff in there. So this is the couple things that you can do. You can just delete all of this. Requires Maya all the way down to these node types and all of the file info. Okay, just delete that. What that basically is doing is making it so that Maya isn't checking if the file is compatible when it opens it the next time, and that's fine. It'll give you an error because Maya wants that stuff, but it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, and then if you have any references, it'll say file-r. Okay, what you want to do is you want to change the path of that reference so that it actually asks you to find the path of that reference so you can skip it. The other thing you can do is if you open up Maya, you can turn on selective preload on your references. So you can load one reference at a time and discover if one of them is giving you a problem. So for instance, you have a character and a prop. Maybe the prop is rigged all funky and it's screwing up your file. You want to be able to load one of those references at a time. When we switch over to Maya, I'll show you what that means. Okay, so you deleted all that stuff at the top. Okay, so then you're going to save it. All right, and then don't open this one. Okay, but just copy this directory, 1901. All right, and then open Maya. So we're going to wait here for a second. And so what we're going to do is we've also found that importing your scene, and importing preserves references. So if you have your character reference into your scene, importing that entire thing into a new scene will preserve the reference, so you'll be fine. Importing it into a new scene is kind of a way to scrub the background nodes, sort of. So you go to import and then turn it to Maya scenes, and it was number 1901. And then remember, on referencing load settings, you want to go load no references. Okay. And then what it'll do is basically import the scene, but all the references will be unchecked. Okay, So I don't think the scene actually has many references, but it's okay. So it's going to give you an error, and that's fine, because this was a crash file, okay? And so there's some things that are a little bit wacky. Like, for instance, this green means that his body actually doesn't have any texture even associated with it, okay? This character. So I'm just going to give him Lambert 1, okay? And then I'm going to select everything again, all right? Select everything again, and then I'm going to export just what's selected, okay? So this is all the stuff that I want. See, I don't want this other stuff. I don't want these sets, and I don't want any ghost nodes that are back there at all, okay? I just want to export this. So we're going to export selection as a Maya ASCII again. Preserve references, that's all fine. We're going to export this. I'm just going to go to like my temp directory. And by the way, my temp directory, I have that bookmarked in my Maya file opener, so that when I have a crash, I can just open Maya up again and click on temp, and here it is. So I'm just going to call this, I'm going to export this again as something like 1902, just to keep things simple. All right, and so it just threw me that error that it can't be changed. So I'm actually going to export it all as an MB. Okay, export as Maya binary. Oops, not export all. Export selected. Okay, export selection. Maya binary. Here we go. Artist. Yeah, there's no, so I'm going to go and just get that file name. Just steal that file name. There we go. So just save it as a Maya binary. All right, so this one you should be able to, and I'm just going to close Maya, okay? This one you should be able to open in there we go. This one you should be able to open, and it shouldn't throw you an error. If it still throws an error, I wouldn't worry about that, because the fact is, it didn't throw any errors. The fact is that at a certain point there are nodes that can never be kind of stripped out of a scene without messing with the geometry. And I don't remember what I was doing when this scene crashed, but obviously you should start keeping a little bit, paying a little bit of attention to what you're doing that's making it crash. And normally you kind of like figure this out as you're working with it, like how we have with our stuff here. But basically, the point I'm driving at is the best practices for this is to keep things very simple and try to use almost like surgeon tactics to kind of scrub up every once in a while, actually. So even if I haven't had any crashes, if I'm just modeling this character, sometimes what I'll do, instead of just clicking file save and then just starting to work on the rig, I will actually go to new and I will import that finished model file into a brand new Maya scene. Okay? Well, I'll export it from that other one, right? Just my selected objects, and I'll export it, and then I'll import it into a brand new Maya scene. All right? Sounds crazy. Why don't you just save it and then start rigging it? Well, I have far fewer crashes than I used to before I was sanitizing all the time. All right, so that's what I would get to. That was a good question. Thank you for asking it. I know I went on a little bit long. We're pushing 30 minutes here on this video mail, but I think you guys kind of deserve an update or an answer now that I said everything was hunky-dory in the industry, and then a major studio closed the campus. So again, heart goes out to the PDI peeps. You'll be fine. It'll work out. I'm Kenny Roy. That was a lot of fun. Don't forget to send your questions in. I love to answer them on stream. And good luck with your animation. As always, rock on.